All right. What? Whoopsie. Try to connect my microphone to get decent audio here. And all right. Let me pause that. So we're live. Shabbat Shalom, all of our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah. I expect you're having a very restful Sabbath evening so far. And let me just get this audio connected here. Get my microphone connected. That'd be great. That might help. All right. Shalom, everyone. It's Brother Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly in Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah. We are going to be doing a study tonight. Let me just get the recording to the cloud here. All right, so we're going to be doing a study tonight. I'm with my brother Joshua, my sister Shoshana, and brother Dennis, and my mom's here with me. So we're going to be doing a short little study for Sabbath evening tonight called The Second Most Mistaken Identity. And just to give you a background of what I am referring to here is the mistaken identity of who the white horseman rider of Revelation 6, chapter 6, verse 2 is. So here's my document I have here to start off. Okay, so this is going to be the synopsis here. Many believers believe the white horseman of Revelation 6, verse 2 is Yahushua, but is that true? We are going to go into what do the scriptures have to say? Not what we wanted to say. What do the scriptures literally have to say about this? First of all, we're going to compare the two characteristics of the white horseman of Revelations 19:13, which we know to be Yahushua, and Revelation 6:2. I think we should first do that and see, is that really talking about the same person? We're going to first go into that real quick. So let me get my eastward up here, and let's see here. Okay, so Revelations 6, verse 2. Okay, so we're first going to look at Revelations 6:2 and then Revelations 19:13. Okay, and let me try a decent translation here. Let me try with the Aramaic, see how the Aramaic sounds here. It says, "And I heard and saw, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat upon it had a bow, and a crown was given to him." Now, keep in mind those two physical characteristics. A bow and a crown was given to him. Key phrases there. He didn't originally have a crown. It was given to him. And he went out and gave victory and was conquering and would conquer. Now, again, we're going to test that to see if that's the same or even similar description to the other person in Revelations 19:13. So now we're going to go to Revelations chapter 19, verse 13. We're going to see if there's any similarities between these two horseman riders here. Okay. Let's see here. So we're going to go to Revelations 19. Okay. Sorry about the delay, guys, but it is pretty bad weather outside, so my Wi-Fi might not be the greatest, just FYI. Okay, so starting at verse 11 of Revelations 19. "And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat upon it is called Trustworthy and True," right? So he's actually given a name called Trustworthy and True. Doesn't mention him having a bow, doesn't mention him having a crown. "And in righteousness he rightly rules, and he makes war." So what's interesting here is this person, Revelations 19, is called, meaning a title for him is Trustworthy and True. And in righteousness, he right rules and he makes war. So he makes war in righteousness. What's interesting to note is the rider in Revelation 6, verse 2 is not called trustworthy and true. And in righteousness, it seems there's no righteousness he's being referred to in Revelation 6, verse 2. That rider, there's no righteousness being mentioned for him. He's not judging. So just something to keep in mind here. It seems like it's clearly talking about two different type of riders on two different horses. Okay. From what I can tell. And let me just get my video up for you guys. I was fixing my video here. Sorry about that. That's going to be a new rule that me and my brother Joshua were talking about, is that there's going to be everyone's going to have to keep their cameras on when we're doing studies and on the record as long as they can, as long as their phone's not dying or there's not a reason that they can't be on camera, so that's going to be a new rule we implement in the future. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I'll have mine on in just a minute, bro.
Yeah.
Doing something real quick.
No problem. So let's go to the next bullet point here. We got, the white horseman is represented by a bow, right? So we just went through that. Okay. And a crown. What's interesting to note is there's a certain individual, which is the original beast, the original anti-Messiah character, that would kind of fit for. He's always represented in archaeology with a bow and arrow, Okay. So, and just to show you what I'm talking about here, okay, like if we were to go to, let's say, some Google images here, just for the heck of it. All right. See here. So Nimrod, right? You're going to find interesting here. It always seems to go back to him, right? Always seems to go back to him. Just want to show you something here. Most of his ancient depictions were this. Most. Oh, man, I wasn't looking for it, but I'm glad Google Images is being honest here. X-Men Apocalypse. So they're comparing Apocalypse to Nimrod. That's kind of interesting. I find that. I wasn't even looking for that. Interesting. I just, I find things interesting. Little truth in plain sight there. But look, right here. Here's a real archaeological picture here of Nimrod holding a bow and arrow, a real actual hieroglyphic, I guess you would call hieroglyphic or archaeological, engraving. Okay, so this is clearly Nimrod holding a bow and arrow. Okay, so again, we're going to go back to my bullet point for Revelation 6:2, right? It says he had a bow and a crown and is called a conqueror. Now, we're going to go also, before I move on here and start going to a couple of cross references in Daniel, why I believe this white horseman rider to represent Nimrod or the anti-Messiah allegorically, in a spiritual sense, that it's the spirit of the anti-Messiah that seems to be, what the white horseman of the apocalypse represents. I'm going to let Brother Joshua go because I see he has his hand up. Go ahead, bro.
So if the first horseman is representing Nimrod, would it just be a representation? Because the fourth one also seems to point to Nimrod.
Yeah. You can make a case for that. I would say that, or Satan himself as that last one, because we saw the other day, Satan sometimes is known as the last enemy, death, has to be destroyed. I know a lot of people don't make that connection, but if you actually look at the way it's worded in the book of Hosea, where it talks about, death, where's your sting? Yahuwah through the prophet Hosea is mocking a person called death. And it seems like since Satan has the quote unquote, the power of death, seems like that could be a possibility too. The black horseman could be represented by this.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I was mixing that up with the verse that refers to Apollyon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem, bro. So I believe the black horseman or the horseman of death could be Nimrod. Making now the red horseman can represent either one of them. Because the red horseman is talking about, what is it? The red horseman would be to kill and to take away some of the population. It talks about take peace.
So yes.
Take peace away from the earth. What's interesting is that it could refer to that spirit that's behind the red horseman could be either one, Nimrod or Satan, because Nimrod's also known as Mars.
I've also heard it being referred to as medical devastation. In other words, getting rid of population through, disease and all those sorts of things. I've heard it interpreted that way.
Yeah, so the way Mars is depicted in Roman lore usually is red, wearing all red and gold, So you could kind of see how Mars could be that red horseman. So I find that interesting. Mars would have been the Roman version of Ares, which I find interesting when you research the lore. It always goes back to Nimrod and his mother/wife. Who is the sister of Ares? Well, you got Diana. So it always goes back to them two somehow. It always goes back to them two. So Ares and Mars are the same guy, as you can see, same picture. Okay, so anyway, going back to our topic on hand here, I'm going to show you guys from the book of Daniel why I believe this white horseman to represent Nimrod. So we're going to go first to, let me make sure my screen is up, because sometimes when I go from one screen to the next, it doesn't want to show the next shared screen. Okay, so we're going to go to Daniel 11:16 next, and also verse 36 of Daniel 11, and verse 40, verse 44, and then we'll be going to Daniel 7:24. So first we're going to go to Daniel 11:16. I'm going to show you guys something interesting. So this is also known as the military campaign of the beast. Before he even makes most people don't realize this, chronologically speaking, he's going to have all these campaigns. The anti-Messiah will have all these campaigns before he even comes on the scene. This is like the missing piece of prophecy that you don't really see taught in the Christian church today. They rarely, maybe a couple of Baptist preachers do it, but rarely do you ever see this being talked about for the beast. So we're going to go here for Daniel 11:16. Okay. Says it right here, and I'm reading from the Septuagint, by the way. It says, and he that comes in against him shall do according to his will. So interesting. He's what did Yahushua say when he came to earth? I came to do my Father's will, not my own will. Interesting. So this guy is going to do his own will, and there is no one to stand before him. Where have we heard that before? Revelations, maybe? Who can make war with the beast? And he shall stand in the land of beauty. Well, that's referring to Israel. And it shall be consumed by his hand. Interesting. So he's going to take over Israel. It will be consumed by his hand, his power. Interesting. I find that interesting. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand raised.
Now, with him doing these military exploits, does it necessarily have to be recognized by the rest of the world, or just that he has to do them?
I think that obviously like you said, obviously we see scripture saying he has to do it, so it has to be fulfilled. But as far as the world recognizing that he's done it, it would be convenient for him to be more convincing to Israel for them to see it happening, because like I basically to explain people that don't know about what Judaism's view of what their Moshiach is supposed to be. They want a Moshiach, a Messiah who's going to basically conquer all their enemies. And this is their claim why Yahushua was never the Messiah. This is their claim, even though we obviously disagree with them, but they believe he wasn't the Messiah because he didn't defeat Rome. He didn't rescue them from the Romans. He didn't defeat their other enemies, other Gentile nations, which it seems like Daniel 11 is foreshadowing the beast will do. It seems like this is why they're going to believe in the beast, and why it's different when the beast comes, because it seems like either it's going to be reported to them that he's done this, or they're going to see it somehow on the news or whatever. They'll see it and they'll be like, oh, wow, man, this is our guy. He's also bringing peace with this covenant. Oh, this is our guy. This is our Moshiach, because that's exactly what they want from their Messiah. It just so happens that's the two main things that Yahushua didn't do, why they didn't accept him. He didn't bring world peace, and he didn't defeat their enemies. So this guy is going to do exactly what they wanted Yahushua to do, but Yahushua didn't do. So just to explain why those 2 points are very important, because those two things are really what Judaism believes their Messiah to be today. And it just so happens that that's what the beast is going to do. They don't realize it, but that's what the anti-Messiahs are going to do. But anyway, very good question, Brother Joshua. So verse 36, continuing on in this chapter, it continues on with this anti-Messiah figure, says, he shall do according to his will, again, his own will, and the king shall exalt and magnify himself. Now, mind you guys, this is the exact verse in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This is important to understand. Paul is not making a new prophecy out of nowhere. He's quoting from Daniel in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 when he talks about, he's going to sit in the seat of Elohim and all that. He's getting that from Daniel 11:36. So it says, he will exalt and magnify himself above every deity, and shall speak great swelling words, and shall prosper until the indignation shall be accomplished, for it is coming to an end. Now, so you already see like a connection here, and right here, this is what I mean here. So you continue on to verse 37. He shall not regard any mighty ones of his fathers. Interesting. It's interesting to note that if Nimrod is the anti-Messiah, that would mean he would not regard any other mighty one that his ancestors would have worshipped before him. So that's pretty interesting. Which obviously, certain Hamites became Israelites. They got grafted in. So I find that interesting. And then it says, nor the desire of women. Now, let me just say something. This is not saying he's a homosexual. Okay, it's just saying that he is not going to regard the desire of women. He's not going to be focused on finding a wife. That's all it's saying. It's not saying that he's a homo. Okay. So I know there's a lot of Christian tradition with that verse. Oh, yeah, see, he's gay. That's not what it's saying.
That would excavate him right away from being the Messiah.
Yeah, like why would Judaism? I mean, I get you could make the case, okay, Tel Aviv's the gay capital of the world. I get it, but it's like the religious Judaism are not going to accept a sodomite.
No, they're not.
I seriously doubt that. So just saying, if he's their guy, then. And mind you, too, there's going to be a peace treaty between them and radical Islam. Islam hates homosexuality. Okay, they stone gay people in their countries. Just saying. So, for him to convince the Muslims, he's not going to be a homo. Just saying. Okay. Yeah, we could make a mention of it that unfortunately, if we were a little bit like, I hate to say it, if we were a little bit like, there's certain things in that the Muslims do or that are actually biblical that we should be doing in this country as far as government is. wise is, there should be stoning for homosexuality and other sins. Our country would not be in the shape it's in right now if we actually did stuff similar to that and actually destroyed idols like ISIS was doing. But anyway,
That's how you know we are the daughter of Babylon.
so anyway, but that's just a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
I know.
Neither shall, so to continue here, it says, neither shall he regard any deity. So he's going to be so blasphemous that he's not even going to regard any deity. He's not going to be monotheistic, polytheistic. He is going to magnify himself above all. Now, obviously, I believe back then Daniel was referring to possibly Antiochus partially fulfilling this, because mind you, Daniel's written before Antiochus Epiphanes does what he does in Maccabees. Mind you, Daniel's written before the time of the Maccabees. So just chronologically speaking, you could say a partial fulfillment was Antiochus Epiphanes. And he shall honor the mighty one of forces on his place. Now, it's interesting. It says the mighty one of forces. If you actually look at that word for forces, it's talking about like a deity of war. And we just talked about Mars, the god of war. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth, I don't know. I just find that interesting because Antiochus, what type of statue does he set up when he does the abomination desolation? A statue of Jupiter.
Oh, Jupiter.
Who in the Phoenician religion would be Baal. I'm just saying, I'm maybe I shouldn't be crossing dots that I'm crossing, but I'm just saying, I'm just seeing a connection here. I'm just saying, I'm seeing a connection here. So, and a mighty one whom his fathers knew not, he shall honor with gold, silver, precious stones, desirable things. I find it interesting. It says a mighty one his fathers knew not, meaning his ancestors knew not. And it says he's honors them with gold, silver, precious stones, desirable things. You know what I find interesting about that description of what he's honoring them with? When you look at Ezekiel 28, Satan has gold on him, has stones on him, on his chest. Coincidence? I don't know. Just, I find that interesting. Let's see here. I just want to see. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you just put your hand up.
It's interesting. You got a couple different readings for that. He will worship the mighty one of forces. Another reading is, yet in his place he will esteem the mighty one Ma'ozim, or fortresses. I don't know what the difference would be between forces and fortresses, but the Charles Thompson Septuagint reads the mighty one Ma'ozim.
See here. You got Theos in the Greek. Okay, so that would be a deity, a mighty one. Then you got fortress, Makomai. Middle voice of apparently primary to war. So I would actually agree with more, especially if you take a more literal interpretation of the Greek word there, it means to war, to quarrel. So I would say a deity of war, I would side with. That's what it literally means. Like, which we just looked at that Nimrod in the Roman lore could have been Mars, the god of war. So I don't know. I'm seeing some connections here. I don't know. I'm just seeing some interesting connections. I don't know. Supposedly mythology is mythology. So I guess we shouldn't be making these dots. But you know what? Maybe what we're taught mythology is not mythology, just something to think about. Anyway, Daniel, let's see, we're going to go back to Esort and we're going to look at verses 40 to 44 of this chapter because we're not done with this chapter yet. We're going to be looking at verses 40 and 44. So let me go back to Esort here. Okay. All right, so let's see here. This is going to be interesting here. Now we're looking at verses 40 and 44. So it says, and at the end of the time, he shall conflict with the king of the south, and the king of the north shall come up against him with chariots and with horsemen, and with many ships, and they shall enter into the land, and he shall break in pieces and pass on. Now, what's interesting about the break in pieces kind of reminds me of Daniel 7, how there's that last fourth kingdom, right, Mom? How it says it shatters, it breaks to pieces, the iron and the clay together. So it seems like there's a connection between the beast, the king of that kingdom, and the kingdom itself is going to do the same thing. It's going to break to pieces. So we don't see much really telling us from that verse other than the breaking to pieces, which definitely shows that he's a conqueror. He's conquering all these kings and kingdoms. So definitely a good candidate for the white horseman since he's a conqueror. Let's see here. And if we go, what's interesting here is this next bullet point, or no, let me go to verse 44 and then Daniel 7:24 before I get to the next bullet point. So verse 44 is the last verse in this chapter we're going to look at. Daniel 11:44, which says, but rumors and anxieties out of the east and from the north shall trouble him, and he shall come with great wrath to destroy many. So it's almost like Satan's controlling him here. He's got great wrath to destroy many. And so we see again the concept of he's conquering many people or many nations. So anyway, so we're going to move on to Daniel 7:24 here. And this will kind of parallel with Daniel 11:16, which we looked at earlier, how he's going to have great swelling words against the Most High and all that. So, all right. So let's see here. Okay. Daniel 7:24. Let's see here. And his 10 horns are 10 kings that shall rise, and after them shall rise another who shall exceed all the former ones in wickedness. Well, isn't that true? And he shall subdue 3 kings. So this guy's so strong, he himself is going to subdue 3 kings. So again, that kind of goes back to the whole Revelations 13 concept, who can make war with the beast. So he's going to subdue 3 other kings, and he excels them in wickedness. Very interesting. Instead of righteousness, which we saw in Revelations 19:13 for Yahushua, this guy's all about wickedness. So very interesting, like a total opposite paradigm. This white horseman rider, Revelation 6, is all about wickedness. Yahushua in Revelations 19 is all righteous. Very interesting. So here we go. Next bullet point. We're finally at the next bullet point here, okay? Nimrod historically was the first king post-flood and was a conqueror and a hunter. So now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 10, 9-10, specifically in the Septuagint. Specifically. So a lot of people get confused with the word before, and we're going to go into that once we read these verses. Like, oh, he's serving him. No. You got to go into the original Hebrew and Greek of that word to see what that word actually means. It does not mean before. That's a mistranslation. Okay. He was a giant hunter against Yahuwah Elohim. Therefore, they say as Nimrod, the giant hunter before Yahuwah. So he was a hunter of giants, and he was a giant. And he was a giant himself. When we go to the prior verse, according to the Septuagint, it says, and Cush, meaning, descendant of Ham, Cush, begot Nimrod. He began to be a giant upon the earth. Now, very interesting word here for began in the Greek and the Hebrew. Now, in the Greek, it's funny to note that it actually means the first of something. What I find interesting, if you ever seen the movie Blade Trinity, this is it's a little interesting tie-in to Nimrod here. What's the guy's name that was he did the Van Wilder movies. What's the actor's name? Oh, my mind's drawing blanks right now. He did Deadpool recently too. That the guy that talks about
Ryan Reynolds?
yeah, Ryan Reynolds. Thank you. So Ryan Reynolds gives like the background of Nimrod, or the character that represents Nimrod in Blade Trinity, who is just so happens to be the first ever vampire. Um, Dracula. And they call Dracula, interesting enough, Drake in English. But what's interesting about the backstory, you can find this video. I'll leave the link for the video on from YouTube for people to check this out for themselves if they don't want to believe me. You can check this out. I would warn sensitive viewers of a young age. There's a tiny bit of profanity in it, but basically Ryan Reynolds is giving the guy's background. And he says, oh yeah, he goes all the way back to Sumeria. Now, if you understand where Sumeria is geographically, that's Babylon, Shinar. So they're actually telling you in plain sight, Dracula is none other than Baal, Nimrod. What's interesting about that is that when you read books like the Book of Enoch, it talks about giants are linked to cannibalism, to drinking blood. So it's kind of interesting how a movie is kind of putting the truth in plain sight right there, that this guy, is the first ever, quote unquote vampire, someone that would drink blood, which is prohibited in Torah, by the way. But I find it interesting that they actually point Dracula as none other than Nimrod. And then another movie portrays Dracula as Judas. So I find it interesting. And that's a whole nother topic, how Judas and Nimrod seem to have like this weird connection, how Judas is like a Nimrod type. And it's kind of interesting. But anyway, I don't want to go too big of a rabbit trail, but I just find it interesting that it literally says he began. The word for began in the Greek means first to do something. I just find that interesting. So first to be a giant, first to become a giant or transform into a giant, I guess you could say, or corrupt yourself to be a giant. He was the first to do something, first to do that. Just find that interesting that the Greek word from the Septuagint literally means that, the first to do something. Archome, like archon. Interesting. Then if you go into the Hebrew, it's even worse. It talks about he defiled himself, and possibly hints to a sexual defilement to somehow become a giant. So it even gets worse in the Masoretic text of how he would have became a giant, because he wasn't born a giant. Kalal is the Hebrew word. Properly to bore, to wound, to dissolve, figuratively to profane. So figuratively to profane. Okay. So allegorically to profane. But anyway, I just find it interesting. So this verse here kind of gives us a backstory. Nimrod, he began to be a giant. He profaned himself to become a giant. He was the first to do so. And then all of a sudden he's hunting giants. But I also want to show you guys, this is where it gets confusing, because they look at the word before, and many people, even the Hebrew walk, our brothers and sisters, get this false idea that he was still righteous at this point. No, he wasn't. If you actually look at the word before, it's not supposed to be before. Okay, it's if you actually look at it here, G1726, the Greek word, enantion, in the presence of. Now, if you look at the Thayer's Greek lexicon, though, not the Strong's, it says over, against, opposite. That's more accurate. He was against Yahuwah. He was over, against, opposite. He was opposite. Contrary is another synonym for this word. Okay. So, and by the way, the Targums actually agree with this interpretation. Most of the Targums of Genesis 10 will literally say he was against Yahuwah, like translated into English, it will say against. So just thought I would mention that it should be against, not before, not for him. And what's interesting is the word for before in the Masoretic is panim, which I found interesting. So we go to the Strong's here, H6440, panim. plural, but always a singular, of an unused noun as the part that turns. Preposition. Okay, let's go to a more. Here we go. Got before, except, before time, against, again, against. So I would say the most contextual, honest definition of this word is against, in my opinion. Just looking at all the different versions of Genesis 10, a lot of them seem to agree and point to that he was against Yahuwah at this point. Just saying. Anyway, we're moving on here. But I would encourage you guys to look into the original definition of the Greek and the Hebrew for the word that they mistranslate as before. Okay. All right. So here we go. The next bullet point here. Yahushua can't be the white horseman because he is the one who opens the scroll, which opens the seals. So basically the point I'm trying to make with this bullet point is, how is the same person that's opening those seals that are not him? He's not the seals because he's opening the seals. How would he be one of those seals? So I'm going to go to that verse and show you what I mean here. So we're going to go to Revelations chapter 5, verse 5. All right. And let me make sure that I'm going to do new shared screen just to make sure it's going to work. All right. So here we go. All right. Revelations 5:5. All right. I think I'll try the Aramaic. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if my screen's messing up because it's still buffering anyway. Here we go. Oh, go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
I was just going to say, Yahushua can't come yet. He hasn't opened himself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the way that verse is worded, it would make no sense that he's the one opening the seal and he's the seal itself. It just would not make any sense. Let me see here. Revelations 5:5. One of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the lion from the tribe of Yehudah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and its seals. And I saw in the midst of a throne and the 4 living creatures, and of the elders a lamb, which was as if it were slain, and it had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Elohim into the whole earth. And he came and took the scroll from the hand of him who sat on the throne. When he had received the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, while each of them had a stringed instrument and a vessel of gold full of sweet spices, which are the prayers of the set-apart ones, singing a new song of praise. And they were saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and loosen its seals, because you were slain and you have redeemed us by your blood to Elohim from every tribe, ethnos, and people. And you have made them a kingdom, priests and kings to our Elohim, and they shall reign over the earth. And I saw and heard, as it were, the voice of many angels around the throne, and of the 4 living creatures, the elders, and their number was 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000s, and thousands of thousands. And they were saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the slain lamb to receive power, wealth, wisdom, strength, and honor, esteem, and barak, and every creature which is in heaven and in earth and under earth, in the sea, and all that is in them." I also heard saying, "Baraka, honor, and esteem, and dominion to him sitting upon the throne, and to the Lamb for eternity of eternities." And when the 4 living creatures said, "So be it," the elders fell down and worshipped. Okay, so that's the end of that. And obviously, as you can see, Yahushua is the one opening the seals, so he can't be one of the seals. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. Anyway, so we're going to move on here to the next bullet point. Who can make war with the beast? Okay. Another interesting historical parallel to Revelations 13:4. There's a book called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which Nimrod to the Sumerian culture would have been Gilgamesh. It's interesting to note there's a verse in that Sumerian text that actually says, who is like Gilgamesh in kingliness? Who can make war with him? So I just find it interesting that even a Sumerian text practically parallels what Revelation says. To me, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's almost like someone was trying to copy Yahuwah. I wonder who. So anyway, so we're going to look to Revelations 13:4. Okay, so Revelations 13:4. Okay. I'll stick with my Peshitta New Testament here, my Aramaic Peshitta here. See here. Okay, come on, Eastward, you're killing me here. All right, here we go. All right. And they worship the dragon, Satan, okay, that gives authority to the beast. Remember, we talked about the deity of fortresses or forces and all that. Interesting that it says they worship the dragon that gives authority to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who is able to make war with it? Okay, so very interesting. So who is able to make war with it? So because he's a conqueror, he's almost unbeatable. The world thinks that he can't be defeated. Okay, so here we go. Revelations 11 verse 7 is going to be the next one. So Revelations 11:7. Beast conquers the two witnesses. So now we see another couple of individuals that he conquers. Okay, Revelations 11 verse 7. Okay. And this is how we know the beast cannot come right away when the two witnesses are on the scene. This is how we know that the beast actually has to wait for the two witnesses to come first. Literally, that's what it says. So Revelation 11 says, and when their testimonies are complete, that means the beast is in the pit the whole time while the two witnesses are preaching in Jerusalem and all that. Like, he's not even out of the pit yet. Okay. So it says the beast that will ascend, future tense, from the sea. And the reason it says sea here is that because technically the pit is like a sea. It's like, abyss, or, the waters below. Okay. We'll make war with them and we'll conquer them and kill them. So basically this is showing me here that you got the two witnesses have to come way before the beast even is doing his military campaign or anything, because he's actually in the pit this whole time that they're doing their testimony. Okay, so it says he will make war with them and will conquer them and kill them. Yep. Go ahead, Joshua.
So would you say that the two witnesses would be one of like the next things in line as far as prophetically needs to happen?
Yeah. The revealing of the two witnesses in Jerusalem, the preaching for the certain amount of days that they have to preach for, that I would say that would be the very last thing before the beast ascends out of the pit, and then he has his military campaign. Now, obviously, there's like gaps here between Revelations 11 and when and what Daniel talks about in Daniel 11. There's kind of like a gap here in time period between that and when he actually kills the two witnesses. So obviously, I would believe like when he ascends out of the pit, he's going to do his military campaign first, and then he's coming to make war with them. If that makes any sense. Because we just saw in Daniel 11 in context, he's doing these military campaigns, then he goes to Jerusalem. So if we're going to keep everything in context, that's how chronologically Revelations would play out. He would physically ascend from the pit. Now, remember, a brother was asking me way long ago who was in this fellowship. He was asking me, do you think the pit is physical or spiritual? I would say both. But as far as him ascending from the pit, that's a physical action. There's an actual pit under the earth, under the eretz, the ground. There's a pit. There's a bottomless pit that he's going to physically ascend from. Most likely after he ascends, he's going to, start making war with those nations, and then he's going to come to Jerusalem. And then, as Revelations 11:7 says, after, probably what's happening is their testimonies when their testimonies are happening, you know, when they're preaching, the amount of days, those amount of days is when he's actually given time to do his military campaign. It's kind of like if you were to synchronize the time period, when they're doing their testimonies, that's probably when he's actually on his military campaign. If I was to theorize, you know, because scripture doesn't literally say when exactly he's going to do his military campaign. So try to put, you know, the puzzle pieces together. That's kind of my theory on that. But yeah, very good question. So Revelations 11:7, though, at the minimum shows that he can't make that covenant until this happens first, if that makes any sense. So everyone's that's worried about when the tribulation is going to happen, listen, guys, we're way far off. Revelations 11:7 hasn't even happened yet. So we definitely got a little bit more time, guys, before the tribulation is going to happen. Before even the covenant, 7-year covenant is made, there has to be a certain amount of days that you'll see in Revelations chapter 11. They're given to prophesy before he even makes his, you know, triumphal entry into the temple and all that. So yeah, we got a little bit of time. So anyway, so let me just put a new screen share here. Let's see here. Daniel 7:25. This is an important one too. This is going to be the last cross reference we have to show you why I believe Revelation 6:2 is talking about Nimrod. And at least, if not Nimrod himself, at least the spirit behind Nimrod, because he is going to wear out the set apart ones, and he's going to actually overcome them for a time, as it says in Daniel 7:25. So, all right, Daniel 7. Let me get to the Septuagint here. Okay, Daniel 7:25 says, "And he shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the set apart ones of the Most High." And I really like how the Septuagint says, "He shall think to change times and law," because I know we have a lot of brothers and sisters that, you know, just through conspiracy theory have thought the Sabbath was literally changed and we don't know what day the Sabbath was anymore. Listen, it says think to change times or law. Not that he did. He thought to do it. He attempted to do it. He didn't actually do it. He wasn't successful, you could say. Okay. And power shall be given into his hand for a time, times and a half a time. So 3.5 years. Okay. So that's referring to, you could say that's what we typically call traditionally as the reign of the beast. That's the time period of the reign of the beast, when it's the last 3.5 years. That's his reign. That Yahuwah allows him to have his little time. That's Satan. He allows Satan and the beast to have their little time on the earth during that time period. Basically, the anti-Messiah spirits running rampant. You know, the restrainer lets them go and all that. So just to explain what that verse is talking about, that power is given into his hand for times and a half a time. So anyway, so that's the last verse I wanted to bring up. But I pray that this study tonight was a really tube study to help a lot of brothers and sisters out there that are being misled and don't understand who this white horseman of Revelation 6 represents at the minimum, whether you look at it as like, you know, allegorical and that it's not literally talking about an anti-Messiah character. I think what we can all agree on is that Revelation 6:2, we should all be able to agree on this, not referring to Yahushua as that white horseman. It's very clear that it's a different person. It's a conqueror that has a bow. And like I showed that picture of earlier, if you go all the way back into ancient Samaria, ancient Babylon, Nimrod was always represented with a bow and arrow. That was his symbol. So just saying. And I know there's some people that I see it on Facebook all the time. They get these weird cross references that have nothing to do with Revelation 6. They'll get like, I was an arrow in his quiver. And like, it's like, I'm like, that's not even referring to the verse, guys. Please keep it in context, brothers and sisters. I say that with love. Please stop it. Stop the madness. Stop. Keep it on context. Revelation 6:2 is talking about someone that's given a crown, which to me kind of resembles Apollyon in a way. Even if you go to Revelations 9:11, right? He's given the key to the bottomless pit, So again, like he's given something, he doesn't automatically have it. Like Yahushua, the difference between him and the beast too is that he already would have a crown. He would already be King of Kings. He's not given it at that time period. He's already a king. So the fact is that this white horseman rider is given a crown, meaning he didn't have a crown previously, if that makes any sense. So to me, there's a lot of hints in Revelation 6:2. It's not referring to Yahushua, in my opinion. So anyway, hopefully this brought more clarity to this subject. I really think this is one of the biggest misunderstandings and that the body of Messiah has today. And I really think misunderstanding Yahushua's character can be very fatal, and who he is can be very fatal. I think it's very important to study out this topic. All scripture, as Paul, the Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy, all scripture can be used for reproof, for correction in righteousness. So it matters. All scripture matters, because I know some of you might have the knee-jerk reaction like, why does this matter, Doug? It's not salvational. Listen, okay, it doesn't have to be salvational to matter. Okay, we're supposed to study scripture. That's our job. We're supposed to study to show ourselves approved to the Father. Okay, that means like every topic matters in scripture. Anyway, so I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, but I'm just saying all scripture matters. Every topic that's in the word matters. All right, yeah. All right, so we are going to be doing this study that we just did. Hopefully, like I said, it brought clarity. Hopefully, it's easier to understand now who Revelation 6:2 represents. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. If you want to know more about why I believe who I believe, about who the beast is, please check out our other studies on the channel, like who is the anti-Messiah. I think we did like a 2-part study about that a couple of years ago. So because we did a whole Google Doc study on it. So if you want more scriptures and all that and historical evidence, please check those out. To our brothers and sisters out there that saw this study, thank you for tuning in, for listening in, for watching. Have a great rest of your Sabbath, guys. Shabbat shalom.